Greetings, and welcome to Amplified, where we amplify the politics and the policies impacting Black and brown communities. I'm Aisha Mills. Since Justice Stephen Breyer announced his plans to retire last month, there's been much speculation about who will fill the new opening on the nation's highest court. President Biden has committed to nominating a Black woman. If confirmed, she would be the first Black woman to serve on the Supreme Court of the United States in history. All eyes are on the Supreme Court, or SCOTUS as it's called, but tonight I want to take a step back and take a look at representation in the judicial system overall. Federal courts have a profound impact on the lives of all Americans. They are the arbiters of disputes over gun violence and healthcare access, civil rights, voting rights, of course, and much, much more. And while the buck stops at the Supreme Court, there are several lower courts that resolve all manner of cases that don't bubble up to the high court. 94 district or trial courts, organized into 12 regional circuits across the country, adjudicate cases. And then from there, 13 appellate courts, which sit just below the Supreme Court, hear challenges to those outcomes, to the outcomes of those cases. They can then refer the most contentious and precedent-setting cases on up to SCOTUS if they can't resolve them in appeal. There are approximately 870 or so federal judges sitting at any given point in time, all of which are appointed by a president and confirmed by the U.S. Senate to hold these roles for life. And only a small percentage of them are Black women. According to the Pew Center, the number of Black women presiding over federal courts tends to grow during Democratic administrations. Lyndon B. Johnson appointed the first Black woman to the federal courts. Over their 16 collective years in office, Barack Obama and Bill Clinton appointed a total of 41 Black women to the federal judiciary. But the numbers are still relatively few. But one group is working to change that. Joining me now is Aimee Allison, the founder and president of She the People, a group mobilizing women of color to advocate for more representation in public office, on the courts, and anywhere that it matters. Aimee, welcome to Amplified. I want to start with the history of representation on the federal bench. According to the Federal Judicial Center, only 70 of the more than 3,800 federal judges who have ever served in the U.S. have been Black women. That's just 2% of all jurists ever seated. So tell me what your group, She the People, is doing to remedy this.
The first thing that we need to do is to acknowledge that this country needs the leadership of Black women, a particular Black woman on the Supreme Court. It's long overdue. It's been more than 250 years since the Supreme Court first convened. And in all those times, interpreting the Constitution, interpreting laws, Black women have been subject to that, to the laws and to the decisions of the Supreme Court, but never in a position to contribute to them. And while this Supreme Court nominee is not going to immediately change the balance of power on the Supreme Court, it is very difficult to argue that a just America, one in which acknowledges who lives here now, and one in which is committed to democracy and civil rights, should not have a Black woman and our representation. So what our organization is doing is working across the country with Black, Latina, Asian American, Indigenous women who all believe, as the center of a multiracial coalition, that America's better when a Black woman, particularly, who believes in justice and is going to fight for that on the Supreme Court, is confirmed, nominated and then confirmed. It's a game changer.
And talk to us about why it's a game changer, because you alluded a bit to the fact that we have been subject to the decisions that come down, and certainly the representation matters because a diversity of perspectives is something that we often talk about matters. I'd love for you to expand upon why.
Well, I first want to say, look, a jurist who interprets a Constitution in the highest court of the land is going to be in a position to weigh in on very pressing issues that we face in our lives right now. Voting rights, the fact that we don't have a federal Voting Rights Act to protect Black voters and other communities of voters in an environment where that's being threatened, that's going to be heard the Supreme Court. Abortion rights, the decision whether women are going to be able to control our bodies and make our decisions or not. That will be decided by the Supreme Court, probably in the near future. Other major issues on jobs and housing, those are the things that affect our daily life that the Supreme Court is going to make a decision on. Black women, arguably, more than most every other American, understand what it is to suffer the cruel policies and practices of this nation and to live with unjust laws that keep Black women very aware of inequality based on race, based on gender. And so Black women should be part of the decision and interpretation of our laws. That's, it's a fundamental. And I think for those who come in this political moment, who believe in inclusion and believe that that's a very essential part of democracy, that's why I think many of us are just very excited about the possibility.
And, there are so many layers that you go through before you actually get to the Supreme Court. And I want to really emphasize that because Black women are underrepresented all across the board. Certainly, we deserve to sit on the Supreme Court. But on the courts that are below that, I mean, we just saw some stats that said only 2% of those who've been appointed to federal judgeships have been Black women. And interestingly enough, most of the Black women who've been on the bench were actually on district courts and not the more influential appeals courts. And I wonder if you could speak to that and speak to the distinction between the two and why it matters, especially as we're tossing around names now for who might ascend to that high court.
I just want to say the political system that results in appointments of district judges, in some cases the election of judges, that political system wasn't built for Black women, and still to this day makes it difficult for us to have the representation that we should have in this. And because district and state courts are feeders for these higher level, in this case, the Supreme Court nomination of consideration, they're amazingly important. And what we saw is the former president appointing the majority of white, mostly male judges to these kind of roles, filling up this level of courts that make really big determinations that affect our daily life. Although being in that level of district is not a requirement for Supreme Court justice nomination, it is a feeder group of judges. And the fact that Biden has done a good job in the first year of appointing Black women to some of these key district courts, I think is a good sign. But it's always a function of politics itself. It's never a kind of a distant kind of decision that's not attached to a political system that's shut us out. So the fact that we're only 2% of those judges continues to be an issue, and we need to shine a light on that and provide both the support for lawyers who want to go into the judicial system so that we have a number of jurists in every level of our system that are interpreting and implementing our laws.
Well, let's talk a bit about what Biden is up to. Like I mentioned, Presidents Clinton and Obama actually put 41 Black women on the federal bench. That's, of course, over 16 years. And, they kind of ebbed and flowed in terms of their service. Joe Biden, if he continues at the clip that he's going to appoint Black women, he's actually going to overtake the two of them. And he's certainly already appointed more than any GOP president. So I wonder, in your opinion, is there some real momentum brewing right now for Black women on the bench? And talk to me about what you and your organization might be doing around the advocacy efforts to capitalize on that.
Well, I do think there's some momentum But we're also in an environment where Black women aren't getting all of our agenda. It's not we're getting everything. But I really do. I'm very encouraged by the number of appointments. And I don't know if you saw the president's POTUS Instagram, but having a video that basically showed the pictures of all of these Supreme Court justices, one after one another. And it wasn't until the very end of that barrage of photos that you see a kind of a outline of a woman's profile, and it says, this country's there's so many talented Black women that should be considered, and I will nominate. And I just have never seen that before. So the excitement I feel is in the the recognition of Black women who are the highest vote turnout group. We're not a majority of many states, but where we are significant, we are a quarter of the Democratic Party. We're a powerful interest group voting bloc. And yet Black women whose organizing and vote has made the difference in so many elections at every level haven't until very recently been acknowledged. I think that's what our organization, She the People, continues to do. If the nation understands and sees the very unique, special role that Black women have played in not only civic engagement and upholding the highest American values of democracy and belonging and justice, and they understand that Black women need to be in leadership. And when we look at the way that Black women are, many groups, multiracial groups, different races and genders, are looking to Black women's leadership in this time. That's where we're telling that story. We're creating political momentum and really telling those who are elected that it's time for us. We will not accept less, that real justice has to look like justice that includes the leadership, interpretation, the brilliance of Black women at every level.
Yeah. All right. Aimee Allison, founder and president of She the People. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your insights tonight on Amplified.